I'm recording this on November 1st, and for Bears fans, November 1st represents a bittersweet day, to say the very least, because it commemorates the anniversary of the passing of the greatest Chicago Bears player of all time, the all-time representation of Chicago athlete, everything we would want an athlete to be that represents the city of Chicago. It's not MJ. It's not anybody else. It was, is, always will be Sweetness. He passed away 25 years ago. I remember it still like it was yesterday, right? The press conference where he announced that he had the disease, all of that journey throughout 1999. He passed away back when I was 18 years old. It just feels like forever and a day ago, but yet at the same point in time, every November 1st, it comes back like it's yesterday, right? And I always felt there's a different type of connection to the situation because Walter was the same age as my dad. I'm the same age as Jared. So, that's how we process things, right? That's how we choose to understand things in terms that make sense to us, how we relate to them. But, for somebody who obviously loves the Chicago Bears, there is not a player, personality, anything in the history of that organization that elicits that level. And even when you talk about like the Butkuses and the Papa Bear Hallises and the Ditkas and so many great names, like Sweetness stands apart. And I was thinking about it a little bit earlier before I started preparing for this video. I remember, the memorial service in Soldier Field, and then of course it's like it was written in the stars. The opponent that Sunday was going to be the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field, and I will say this, like looking back at that game, that's the Brian Robinson blocked field goal. The Bears win 14-13. There's a game that I think about that one, and still to this day, I've never wanted the Bears to win a regular season game more than that one. And I bet you I'm not alone. I bet you I'm not alone. And there are other games on the line, like division titles on the line, and those are great and all, but there will always be something significant about November 7th, 1999. And maybe my hope here a little bit as we get ready to watch the Bears and Cardinals late Sunday afternoon is I really hope Fox will make some kind of head nod to Walter Payton and show some tributes to him throughout the game. You might say, I don't know if they'll go that far. It'd be kind of cool if they did, though, because it's been 25 years, and you have so many younger fans that don't remember Walter Payton, that don't really know who Walter Payton is other than like a ghost of the past and a stat and a Hall of Fame busted Canton. I don't know. It's just me, right? But we'll see what happens on Sunday. Let's talk about it. But Sweetness will always live in the hearts of Bears fans all around the world. But life goes on, and so does the 2024 Chicago Bears season. And, last week, what more can you say? Bears football! A heartbreaking loss to the Commanders. That Hail Maryland play, whatever the hell name you're going to give it. Like, what a nut punch, gut punch type of loss, right? Ironically, though, it was a game the Bears really didn't deserve to win. They played like dog shit, especially offensively for the first three quarters of the game plus. And yet when it came down to it, as well as the defense had generally played throughout the game in terms of keeping the Commanders out of the end zone, they still came up short. And those are the types of losses that you just can't take. Those are the types of losses that could be one of those shit happens and you move on. It's one of those, it starts the snowball rolling down the hill and down you go. It could be one of those, hey, this is the kick in the ass that they needed and it's going to turn the season on a whole different trajectory. It could be any of those things, right? We're going to find out. Like if Matt Eberflus wants to show that he's in charge here, if he wants to show that he's a quality NFL head coach, it's this point in time in the season that he needs to strut his stuff. Because what we saw Last week, they had 2 weeks to prepare for that, and that's what they put up? Oh, my God. Like, you would have thought, if you assumed Eberflus, Waldron, etc. suck, that, hey, even if you give them 2 weeks to prepare, they'll at least come out looking somewhat competent. Anyways, as we look at the 2024 season, big shock, the defense is the better side of the ball for this team. Bears football, of course it would be. Why wouldn't it be? They're 4th in the league in points allowed per game, 11th in yards allowed per game. So I don't view them as an elite defense, but they certainly are playing at a decently high level, right? They're a very good defense. An elite defense doesn't piss it down their legs at the end against Washington on Sunday. That's the difference. Because ultimately, you needed to get that stop and you failed to do so. And all the shit with Tyreek Stevenson and everything else, what a fucking disaster. You've got players talking about the need for accountability and players weren't taking it so seriously. Not good. Especially when you're talking about a team that even with that loss is sitting at 4-3. Like, it's not a season over type of thing. But it sure got some really bad vibes right now. Just like this offense does. They're 28th in passing yards, 27th in total yards, kind of middle of the pack in terms of points scored. But the reality is they're still 4-3. You've got this game against the Cardinals, next week against the Patriots. 2 games you look at and you say the Bears have a chance to win. They can win. They should win. Like, it doesn't have to be the end of the season by any stretch of the imagination. Meanwhile, for the Cardinals, while Bears fans, myself included, look at this matchup and say this is a potentially winnable game for the Bears, because it is, Cardinals fans should have that same mindset, because the Bears are only 4-3 and they're not that much better. My message to Bears fans is don't take the Cardinals for granted. They're in a 3-way tie atop the NFC West. They've won 2 straight and 3 out of their last 4. They beat the Chargers and Dolphins respectively in the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks before that, they beat the 49ers. So this team's improved from last year. They're not a total scrub show. They're not great. They got some real flaws, but they are improving under second-year head coach Jonathan Gannon. Their offense is really good running the ball. The passing game's kind of an up-and-down mixed bag there, not so good. The defense is still pretty bad. They have some good moments, but they are certainly not great. They are certainly gettable. So if you're looking for a bit of a bounce-back, get-right game for the Bears and their offense and the passing game, in theory, statistically at least, the Cardinals defense should represent that type of opportunity. It's interesting when you look at the money and how it's been laid on this game. The Cardinals are 1-point favorites, so they're not getting like the full 3 points for being a home team here. But the over/under 44.5. For the Bears, you look at the injury report. It's concerning. You've got Braxton Jones out, which is kind of like, But then you've got Amagaji out, the 3rd rounder who had forced into action last week with the Braxton Jones injury. And you're like, ooh, he wasn't good either. But those guys are out and they weren't good. What the fuck does that mean for the guys on the bench behind them, right? So that offensive line and that critical left tackle spot, not looking so good. On the defense, Jaquan Brisker is out. In terms of other guys that you worry about their condition for Sunday, you've got Montez Sweat, I believe, with the shin. He's questionable. Kyler Gordon still questionable with the hamstring. Tevin Jenkins questionable. Feels like almost a perpetual thing at this fucking point. So you've got the potential for multiple key impact players on that defense to be out and or limited. And you've got that left side of the offensive line that could be in a really bad spot here. Meanwhile, for the Cardinals, you've got Jonah Williams out from that offensive line. They've got a couple other guys questionable, but they're relatively healthy right now, relatively healthy. So they've got a bit of an advantage there. In terms of keys to victory for both teams, I look at the Chicago Bears, and they have to put last week's loss behind them. It happened. It's done. You can't do shit about it. Good teams find a way to cleanse that from their systems quickly, and they respond. Bad teams kind of toil on it and don't let it go. They have to, though, come into this game much more well-prepared than they did for the Commanders. And again, I just want to emphasize, it's a pretty obvious thing. The Bears came out really flat and poorly prepared, and they had 2 weeks to get ready. And the Commanders were a solid team. You just can't do that. And yet the Bears found a way to overcome the odds and fucking do it. They have to be better prepared. Offensively, defensively, Can't let the Cardinals be moving the ball downfield at will early on. You can't sit there and keep going 3 and out on offense and rely on Torrey Taylor, your rookie punter, to flip the fucking field all the time. Not a formula for success. And then offensively, we talked a little bit about the Cardinals' defense is not great. They certainly aren't. This needs to be a big day from Caleb Williams. He sucked the first 3 quarters of that Commanders game. He played a little better in the 4th quarter, but it's kind of like you needed to see better, and some of that's on him, some of that's on the offensive line, some of that certainly is on the coaching and the play calling there, right? Like, it's a combination. It's not a one side or one thing causes all the problems type of deal. But the forces that be need to combine to be better this week. Caleb Williams, this needs to be a big game for him, point blank, period. In terms of the Cardinals, I mentioned the injuries to Braxton and Amagaji, having them out, and Jenkins being questionable. Attack the left side of the Bears' offensive line. Attack, attack, attack. Blitz the shit out of them. That's going to be a weakness on Sunday. Go after it, exploit it, force the Bears to be uncomfortable and having to redirect what they do in order to contain your rush from the left side of the offensive line, the right side of your defense. Offensively, with James Conner, Kyler Murray, run the ball. Run the ball often against the Bears. The Bears could be had on the ground. Even with like Brisker being out, Gordon being out the past few weeks, this is a secondary that can be tough to throw against. Except apparently when you're in Hail Mary situations, you got one of your fucking starting defensive backs taunting the crowd literally as the play is fucking going on. Run up the gut on the Bears consistently. Make them prove that they could stop it. And then in terms of the passing game, take shots downfield with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson. Don't just try to take what the defense gives you. Try to take some big shots. Try to hit some big plays on the Bears. They are there against that defense. You got to go after them. Point blank, period. As I look at this matchup, my pick here is going to be the Bears to win, and it is only a homer pick. I don't feel good about this one. I don't trust Eberflus. I don't trust this coaching staff. I just don't. And, if they win this one, there's greater odds it'll be in an ugly fashion than in a, goddamn, that was impressive, or what a way to respond type of fashion. Could be wrong, but I don't know, folks. I'm just not seeing it. I'll pick the Bears 23-19. Again, for the Bears, you have to put up more points on offense, and you have to take advantage against this Cardinals defense that is imminently gettable. And meanwhile, you've got to protect Caleb Williams, like all the standard stuff here. If the Bears lose this game, and even if they go and they beat the Patriots and you're like, okay, they're 5-4, and you can't feel that optimistic about the rest of the season. You just can't. This is pretty much, especially because of the loss to the Commanders last Sunday, this is kind of a must-win game for the Bears.